Hello there. I'm Ragged Jack, and this is going to be a retrospective of my time playing the survival game Rust. So kind of what this is a look back, a nostalgia trip for me to look back at everything I've done, the friends I've made, just overall what the game means to me as a person, what influences it's had on me, and stuff like that. You know, this isn't supposed to be some kind of weird review of the game at all. It's just sort of kind of what it means to me as a person. And it's like, but who are you, you know? But I'm nothing, you know, I'm nobody. But I'm just hoping that people that watch this, and the few people that do, find, I don't know, some nostalgic enjoyment in recounting some stories that might be familiar to them or that they might have experienced in the game or other games or just things like that. I just kind of want to have a nice nostalgia video to kind of just reminisce. So this intro's already gone on way too long, so let's go ahead and get into it. Also, I didn't make a script for this. It works better for me to just talk about the memories and just kind of, I'm going to try and place them in a relatively chronological order. So there might be a few cuts. So let's get into the memories, I guess. Alrighty. So what better place to start this story than when I bought the game? I bought it in about, I think it was April of 2014 when I bought it. Me and one of my best friends in the world, Quentin, or Q-Man Wall as he's known online, we both picked it up. It was like, what's this stupid fucking survival game? You know, what is this about? You know, like we fucking sucked so hard. It took us like 50 years to find each other. It was the old legacy version of the game. It just, it was so just we had a really bad time finding each other, and when we finally did, we were able to set up our first little camp. And I didn't even know that, I mean, neither of us knew that you were supposed to have a door, much less lock the door, you know? So we were surprised when we logged back on after, you know, doing stuff, putting stuff in our chest all day, just to find out, oh, somebody raided us. So it was hilarious. It was a good intro to the game, and you know that was just the start of it.
I'm not even hitting you.
Ow!
Oh, I didn't know if like pain was a part of this gun, or if damage was the thing that was implemented into this weapon. I actually didn't know that.
The real journey began. The real brunt of it really began in June of 2015. The experimental / the current version of the game was starting to become more of the mainstream part of the game. I think around that time is when they switched it over from Legacy to that as being the main one that launches when you open it. And so so I logged on as I usually do onto Restopia US, there were so many people on that server at that time. It had such a good community of people that had, you know, rivals, rival clans, rival everything. It was just great. I remember I had been walking around and I saw this little shack, and you know, I walked up to it and I tried to talk to the guy, and he was just this kid, you know, this little 12-year-old sounding kid, and I think I was about 17, 16 at the time. I just remember his he was kind of like, yeah, just come join, you know, I got this small thing going, and he was kind of skeptical of me at first, and you know, I went in there and I met a few people that eventually, in that we were playing with that kid, you know, he was the leader's name was like Chief something, or I can't remember, but the other two people, it was someone named Jelly Bagel and someone named Don't Rage Bro, and we essentially got sick of that kid because he kept being like overly, like he would not let us have fun. Fun was just not on the agenda for this kid. He just didn't want to play Rust to have fun. He was like, fun? God, that's awful. So we didn't end up sticking with that kid. What we did is we took everything out of the base and we griefed the shit out of it, and it was hilarious. And we took our materials and built across the way. And there was this big compound, this relatively big compound of about 6 or so people that was right there that we had been kind of talking to as allies when we were, you know, with that kids group or whatever. And I just remember they were they were kind of skeptical of me at first. They could tell, and their overall group demeanor and everything. And me and Don't Rage and Jelly Bagel, we picked up some guy named Sinless Moon, I think, and we like built a little base and everything. And then we started walking around and running around, and we just got a bunch of the nakeds together, a bunch of the noobs, and we started making what I called at the time the Rust Guitar Alliance. And we went across Restopia, and we all played the guitar in front of people's houses, and people would break out a guitar and come and join us. It was a good old time. And I remember we went to the second story of the unfinished house me and a few people made, and we were gonna take a screenshot of everybody together, the Rust Guitar Alliance. And then one of the boys from the guys that were allied with us next door, because they were a little higher tier than us, and his name was 2FX, and he shot a rocket at everybody. All of the nakeds died except me. I was the only naked left. It was it was hilarious. It was a good time. But over the days that followed that, me and Don't Rage and Jelly Bagel and Sinless Moon, what we did is we formed a clan. We formed a group called GWG, and it stood for Generic White Guys. And it was, I don't know why we went with that name. I think I said it or something. I don't remember exactly what happened with that, but we became established, and our boys over the way that shot a rocket at us, they became our closer, like, they didn't become a part of our group, or we didn't really become a part of theirs, but we kind of became close allies that would end up building next to each other in the following weeks and stuff. And and I remember at some point I started becoming really good friends with some of the people in that other group, and I still had, me, Don't Rage, and the boys, we had our group going, and, started becoming closer friends with those guys. And then a thing happened. There was a smaller creator at the time, Rust with Lou. He was kind of up and coming at the time, He had a neat little Rust series about, and just going around and fucking shit up. It was pretty cool. So what Lou did is he had a little subscriber get-together thing that he was trying to do on a Rust server, and I tried to help him out with that and, be a part of it. And I remember I had a little base with some of the GWG guys. We didn't have a big thing that time, and Lou was trying to get the people together so we could, be safe and, like, have a base to kind of play around in and all that. And I was like, hey, I got a base. And so we went over to that base, and that just sort of became our little base for the time. It was a really fun time until it was a guy, his name was Mac7, and I remember him only by the name The Betrayer, because Mac7, he was slowly siphoning all of our metal to make ammo and an AK-47, and he made it, and then he just mowed down everybody in there. It was hilarious, and I was so fucking pissed off at the time. I was like, good God, we'd been working all day, and he removed that happiness from existence. Good God. And that kind of led into an event that I held on my server, because I had started a server around then, and I built this really intense arena. It was a complex of game types and stuff that I had set up on my server, and Lou did a thing with his subscribers there, and I filmed it, and that was my first Rust video of that happening in July of 2015. It was a really fun time. As I progressed through Rust, just talking to people, meeting people, and doing that, you get better at making friends. And as sort of an introverted person at that time, not really talking to a whole lot of people. I was in high school. I was edgy. I was an edgy boy, and so I only had a handful of people that I talked to. My boy Quentin being one of them, like in real life, and my Rust friends, which is what I'd call them all the time. I'd be talking to my friends at the lunch table and being like, hey, guess what I was doing with my Rust friends? I'm pretty cool. I got a lot of Rust friends. And, it was just such a fun time. I just remember that was one of the kicking off points of that, was that little event that we had on my server, me and Lou, and that was a good time. And shortly after that, a few more people would join the GWG group, and then about a month or so after that, I'd started my sophomore year of high school, and a few people had kind of phased out of the GWG group, and we would still keeping I would at least still keep in contact with the other group that we had befriended. I think they call themselves the Jew Crew, which and it consisted of a few people that I can remember, like the 2FX guy that blew us up with a rocket launcher all those moons ago, and a guy named Epic, and of course some of you in the Rust community might remember a guy named Danny T. He was a part of that group as well, and you know I'd still at least try and keep in contact with them at that time. But my favorite moment as a leader, or not even a leader, but just the guy who kind of brought the GWG people together and like kind of did the base work and everything on the base, like the organizing the chests and all that stuff. I think the term back then was called a base bitch. You know, I would you know, it's like, hey, I'm the leader of this clan, but really I was just the base bitch. But you know, I could pretend all I wanted that I was important. But we had like 8 or so people. It was the biggest our group had ever been, and it was pretty cool. We had just met like a few weeks before that some guy named Dan, some guy Gunny, a few other people that you know were really good friends to me at that time. And now, Wipe, or whatever, was incredibly fun. We didn't really get fucked with a whole lot on the server during that. It was because we got incredibly fucking lucky, and we were able to build a really big base, and I have a video of that base on my channel somewhere. And then, like, I think it was either the time right before that, I can't remember, or the week after, maybe? I have a recording of this as well, where I had constructed the worst base humanly possible for Rust, for our clan. The plan was to make a base that looked so awful, it looked like it had already been raided. And the GWG boys would constantly make fun of me for that week specifically because that base was ugly as fuck, but we didn't get raided.
If we had a swear jar, dude, I'd be paying like fucking God.
But I remember we'd have a ton of run-ins with clans that go around, and you know, that was really when the raid cam stuff for Rust started to become popular, and you'd start to see much larger clans. Well, there were large clans before, but they weren't really as militarized and, you know, like a solid unit as they would soon become. And it was a week that there wasn't really a whole lot of GWG boys on, and I sort of was more with the Jew Crew boys or whatever. I'm just gonna call them, you know, Danny T and them. I'm just gonna call them that from now on. You know, I don't really want to say the Jew Crew too often. But we had essentially what they had done is they had managed to ally with one of the biggest forces, one of the biggest clans on that server on Rustopia US at the time. I think it was LQM, and boy, that was a neat experience. I got to be a part of a giant clan raid. I forget the name of the opposing faction that we were going against, but we were allied with LQM for that week, and then I think they betrayed us or some stupid Rust shit. But sort of during this entire time, I had been starting to make my own Rust videos, and they're awful. They're bad. They're old. Like, they're very bad. Because I was trying at the time to be the funny Rust YouTuber, wow, wacky, funny, zany, but I really couldn't pull it off very well, because it was either be really funny and be like a meme lord about it, or be really good at the game, and I couldn't really do either of those, because I'd been hanging around Danny T and them, and his content consisted around being good at the game, and, you know, I couldn't really compete with that shit, so, but, you know, my channel didn't grow. It was shitty. You know, I didn't really care too much about it. I was just having fun in the game, you know. It was a good time. And something I haven't really touched on, but that was sort of important at the time, was this YouTube boy, Fado82. His content and his videos at that time, especially, I think it was late 2014 or I think it was early 2015, I started watching him, and that progressed, all the way through until he stopped making videos eventually. But it was a good time. I really enjoyed his content. He had a big influence on me. I remember one time, me and the GWG boys and my boy Lou, we made a Rust machinima, and Fadeaway82 commented on that video, and that made my day. That was like, oh my god, the big Rust boy commented on my video. This is everything to me. And even though that Rust machinima, it's pretty bad, it's pretty stupid, I'm still proud of that. I herded the cats to get it to work, and it didn't really work, but you get the picture. It turned into something at least, and that was pretty funny. It was a good time.
My god, that was a close one.
I feel weird.
What do you mean you feel weird?
I don't know, but suddenly I have a craving for human flesh.
But I remember it was sort of around the time that it was maybe early 2016, I think it was. The GWG boys, we were pretty small at that time. It was pretty much just me and Don't Rage and Dan and a few other people. And we sort of just absorbed into the, Danny T and his crew, all those boys. We sort of absorbed into them, and eventually Danny T, he had been making some Rust videos like me, but his had this thing called quality to them. It's like, wow, that has quality to it. That will get the views. And then he made one called Rust Prison Life that it took off, and it was a really funny video. I was real proud of my boy back then, and then he kept making videos like that, and I was playing with them and doing all kinds of shit, and that's when it was a smaller era of Rust for me. It was pretty weird. It was when Danny started taking off, and he started making videos with this guy Bumbo. I played with him a few times in Rust and all that, and his channel grew, and they were all kind of growing their channels together. They had their subscriber get-togethers and all that, and I was playing with them. I was a part of their streams for a bit, but the thing I take away from that is that, even though they were kind of going up there in the world, they were becoming these kind of, for Rust at least, famous YouTube personalities, and they never got a big head about them, and they would always invite me to play with them, or Danny and them, they'd always invite me to play with them. And, that really meant a lot to me at that time, because, who was I? I was this guy with, fucking 40 subs, just fucking, hey, check out my YouTube channel. I just made a Rust video. This Rust video, I promise, is not just me talking like this and go, oh my god, funny joke, But every video was that. But I just remember I thought that, that meant a lot to me, that they didn't just abandon me because they got YouTube famous, I guess. And that was nice. Around that time, Danny and them started hanging out with bigger and bigger boys, and I remember this one time I joined the TeamSpeak, and General Sam was in there, and I was so afraid to speak. I was like, that's a big boy. That's one of them big channels, oh god. I remember I was just freaking the fuck out because I didn't really understand that, those people, they're just normal people. They were just playing Rust. And I was just like, that's a big boy. But, that was a fun time. I wouldn't trade that for the world. This kind of culminates into the final takeaway. I want people to take away from this in my, why Rust means so much to me, why the community means so much to me. It just, it built up through time. All the people that I met, everything that I did with the people that I met in that game. It took me from this place where I would only talk to maybe 4 people total in life and not talk to anybody else because I was scared. It gave me confidence. And it allowed me to branch out and talk to new people and not be afraid to. And I would not trade that for anything in the world. All that time I spent in Rust, that abhorrent amount of time, 1,400 hours or so, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. That time that I spent with my friends in that game, it changed me. I think it made me a better person. It allowed me to grow a thicker skin, You don't spend more than 2 hours in a populated Rust server without developing some kind of a thicker skin. Because, God, the insults came flying. I remember people would call me, like, they said I sounded fat. And especially when I would put on the voice, they would, they'd be like, "Stop trying to make a YouTube video, boy." And, that would kind of get to me a little bit, but, back on subject, all the stuff that happened then, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Everybody that I talked to, everybody that I met, every event that I was part of, it was great. It opened my eyes. There are people that I talked to back then, people that I still kind of talk to today, a few of them, and people that I kind of want to get back in contact with because we had such a good time. And, I don't want everything to just fade into nostalgia, but sometimes it has to do that for the world to just go forward. But I hope someone out there can kind of feel what I'm feeling here and, like, this nostalgia for this stupid fucking survival game and the people and the communities from, that time period, the 2014 through fucking early 2017 for me at least. It was crazy. It was eye-opening, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I hope somebody out there can take this and find their, remember their own good memories, remember their own friends, every stupid joke that was made, every stupid fucking anything that y'all did, and those Rust servers. God, it was a good time. Thank you.